The most insulting thing is when people have the luxury to be minimalists, and then it's very difficult to tell somebody you should be content living in a hut with your family of 5 while you're living in a better than 99% of people in the world today. That verse is about us, friends. 56% of women who work full-time would have preferred
Ruslan.
So this is an interesting conversation that he kind of shared some of this stuff when he was on my channel. And let's check this out, and I'll give you guys my thoughts.
Things going on like unelected elites at the World Economic Forum talking about climate change, digital IDs. These are the same people that set the COVID narrative. There's Bill Gates buying up farmland. The World Economic Forum even said that by 2030, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy, and you'll eat bugs. So my question to you is...
You guys think I'm stupid. I'm not stupid, guys. I know this.
Yo, the World Economic Forum is just an L magnet right now. I don't know who takes these guys seriously, but they are a complete L magnet with some of the goofy stuff they're saying. I could rant on and on about that. Maybe we'll do that.
What do you think the purpose is behind all of this? And do you want to eat bugs and own nothing? And do you think you'll be happy?
So, I'm assuming if I were to come into your office, right behind your desk, if I'm a betting man, I'm willing to bet there's probably a nice poster or painting of Klaus Schwab right behind your...
Oh, absolutely. It's actually above my bed. It's actually above my bed, to be more specific.
I totally believe it. There's this painting of this guy. But this whole concept of what they're pushing, there are a lot of people that will buy into that. They will own nothing and be happy. And now you see the message of minimalism and it's going to be okay. And yesterday we're at church and...
So this is interesting. So Pat never talks about church, okay? But I know Pat's a churchgoer because he's been on the channel. And I've talked to him and he's opened up, shared his faith. He's really into apologetics, read all the literature, okay? So listen to this story he tells about the pastor at church. Check this out.
The pastor's up on stage and talking about who cares about living in a 6,000 square foot house. I know people that are 10 times more happier living in a shack studio with 5 kids and they're okay. Life is not about this. Life is not about that. And you know what's crazy? I'm looking around the place. I'm like, this is a $200 million facility. Who gave this money to you? Where did this money come from? Didn't you do like a campaign to raise $200 million? So who are you talking to? Who's your audience? Like, who do you think you lose when you talk like that to congregation? You think you're a person that's sitting at this church that maybe is willing to give you $10 million, $5 million is saying, absolutely, let me give it to this? Or do you think that person takes and says, maybe you don't value somebody like me part of your church? I get the whole concept about, a poor man has more likely of going into heaven than the rich man. And I totally understand. I've heard that story a million. We've all heard the story before. But messaging matters in whatever message you have. One time I was asking my guys, I said, say we have an audience of 100 people.
So interesting, right? So he's paralleling this to the whole World Economic Forum and this push for minimalism and having a smaller eco footprint and all this kind of stuff. And he's saying this is coming down from church. And he's saying the irony of it coming from church in a $200 million building. Oh, the irony. The irony. Now, we've talked about this extensively, haven't we? The eye of the needle. Everybody loves using that verse. Oh, the eye of the needle. Rich people can't go to heaven. What they don't understand is that passage is about salvation only being in Jesus and how you can't earn your way to heaven. That's actually what that verse is talking about, right? It's actually not saying that rich people can't go to heaven. It's actually saying, based on our standards of morality, that not even someone that keeps the law and is rich, which in that context, people who were rich because they had more of a fatalistic view of society, were more viewed as more righteous, if you will. So that's what that passage is actually saying. You know how I know that? Because the question when Jesus tells the parrot, it's harder for a rich man to go into the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to go into, it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven. You know how I know? Because they say, well, then who can be saved? Well, then who can be saved? That was the question they asked. Okay, we did a whole video on this. So the whole thing is about who can be saved. That's what the thing is about. That's what the story is about. Who then can be saved? And Jesus responds with, man, what is impossible with man is possible with God. Meaning that not even someone that keeps the entire law and is viewed as righteous by their society is going to make it into heaven. It's only possible with Jesus. That's what it's actually a verse about salvation being by grace through faith alone, if you actually read it in context. And here's the more perplexing part about it is if we're talking about riches if you're watching this on a smart device, if you're watching this on a computer, if your household brings in more than $50,000 a year, friend, you are the rich young ruler. I am the rich young ruler. We are the 1%. Literally, if your household brings more than $50,000 a year, you live better than 99% of people in the world today. That verse is about us, friends. That verse isn't about people who make a little bit more money than you. That verse is about you and me. And are we being owned by our money, or are we leveraging our time, talent, and treasure to contextualize the gospel? And so when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it is ironic that people who are sitting on their thrones, some of the wealthiest people, lack such self-awareness to then turn around and tell people, you're going to own nothing and love it. Really? Really? Interesting. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, but what's happening is in America, not perfect, but flawed system, in America, the most direct path to building wealth and becoming financially free has been home ownership. Well, home ownership, why? Because home ownership means that you can eventually reduce or completely eliminate your biggest expense, which is what? The cost of living, your cost to live in your rent. So if you get a home, you pay it off, you can eliminate that expense and then pass that on to your kids, potentially, right? The cost of living is the most expensive, the rent is the most expensive thing, especially now. Well, what's happening right now is many of the banks are getting out of the mortgage industry. Not sure if you guys know this. They're getting out of the mortgage industry because of this whole you'll own nothing and you love it. And they're saying that Gen Z and millennials, they don't like to own no more. They don't want to own no more. They just want to rent. So they're getting out of the mortgage industry and they're telling people that renting is going to be a better option than owning. Yet these same banks are going up and buying up all the single family homes to rent back to people. That sounds really fascinating to me. I'm not trying to be Mr.
Conspiracy. But you mean to tell me that the same people who want you to own nothing and love it are also buying up all the homes that people would normally buy, pay off, and pass down to their families? The same people that want you to have nothing are all billionaires? The same people that fly around in private jets want you to be more environmentally conscious with your eco footprint?
I mean, listen, I'm not saying I'm not saying that there's connected. I'm just saying it's fascinating. And then when this sort of stuff starts bleeding into the church, and listen, I don't think our possessions should define us, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the Christian wanting to have a home for their family. We just moved out of a 900 square foot condo for a family of 5 into a 1,600 square foot home in Vista. That was a healthy, necessary move for us. It was a good move for us. Hey, you want to see something crazy? 67% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. Do me a quick favor, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date on all the videos here on the Blessed God Studios channel. Right? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we want to buy a home. I want to buy a home, pay it off, and pass it on to my kids and give them an advantage, right? Proverbs says the righteous man will leave an inheritance for his children's children. It's interesting that Patrick David pointed this out and the way he connected it, but it's also interesting that you have pastors that are saying this sort of stuff, and it's usually coming from folks. And this is my opinion. Whenever we talk about finances or whatever, people get triggered. And this is my opinion. The people who get triggered are the people that have never had to worry about money. The people who get triggered, I think, are people that are so set up by their family that did the work for them, or they're so checked out from any type of financial responsibility that it doesn't even matter. I think it's those two extremes. And those are the people that will be triggered by money. The folks that are in the middle that are like, man, I just want my kids to have a better life than I did. And I want to make sure that they don't grow up, going to terrible public schools and indoctrination camps where I got to send them away for 6 hours a day. Most of their sleeping time is away. I can't be as active. I don't want to slave away at a job, for 50 years of, right? Like these people that are thinking about this stuff, I don't want to be a consumer. I don't want to be stuck in debt. I don't want to be paying off student loans for the rest of my life. I don't want to be, right? Most of us are there. But the people that get really triggered are the people that are like, their daddy or their mommy's going to give them a home, or they're way at the bottom of the totem pole. They just have completely no hope and don't even know how to do anything. And I think those are unjust scales. I think those are unjust scales. I don't think it's about being rich or being poor. I think it's about stewardship. I think it's about managing what you've been given per Matthew chapter 25, right? But I find it the most insulting is when people are so well taken care of that they can make statements. The most insulting thing is when people have the luxury to be minimalists and then point down their finger at other people. Bro, you got the opportunity to be a minimalist because you discovered how to build wealth. Like think about that. Like think about the concept of being a minimalist. It's not me dunking on a minimalist directly, but think about that concept for a minute. You had the right, you had the ability to live your life and accumulate so much stuff that you came to the conclusion that you don't need so much stuff. It's very difficult to tell somebody you should be content living in a hut with your family of 5 while you're living in a 3,000 square foot home that you downgraded from a 5,000 square foot home. What are we talking about? That's a luxury you have to gain perspective, if you will. You don't know what it's like to be in a home and it's bursting out of the seams and you're just trying to figure it out because inflation's happening and you got the stupid student loan debt that you're not even using the degree for anymore, and you got a car note because you needed a reliable vehicle. Like, you don't know what that's like for the average person. 65% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. There comes a certain degree where it's a luxury to be a minimalist. There comes a certain degree where you can build your life. You've checked all the boxes, and then you can choose to go backpacking through Europe and that be your life. That's not from wanting more. That's from getting everything you've ever wanted and then discovering, these things don't really mean anything, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's a different level of disconnection. It's a different level of disconnection. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to earn a good living so that you can provide for your spouse, so that you can have kids that have the option to be homeschooled if that's what you choose, that you can, right? You can control how your time is spent. There's nothing wrong with desiring that, especially here and now. And so if you look at the math, like you look at the math and you go, well, if you know, over 75% of men ages 15 and up have kids. That's a real number. Over kids 17 and up have kids. Men 17 and up have kids. What does that mean? That means most men are going to have kids at some point in their life, or they're going to want kids. That is what it is. What is the optimal environment? What is the optimal environment for kids to be in the same home with their biological mother and father? I'm not saying other situations don't work. I'm not saying adoptions don't work. I'm not saying blended families don't work. I'm not saying that all that stuff, God can use all that stuff, and God does use all that stuff, and that's beautiful. But what is the optimal to be in the home with their biological mother and father? So now let's walk through it. Most men are going to want kids. The ideal situation for your kids is to be in the same home as you. Okay, so that means we got to eliminate hook culture. We got to eliminate being married in your heart and sleeping with your girlfriend. We got to eliminate all that to get you married. But here's the other side of that, okay? Rent in the DFW area is $1,500 right now, average rent in the DFW area. Atlanta's like $1,800. That's not coastal. We're not talking about New York, LA, San Francisco, San Diego, Chicago. We're just talking coastal, $1,500 a month. Okay, the average salary for a man is $36,000 a year. Average salary for a man in America is $36,000 a year. The average household is about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. They did a survey with women who had the chance to come home, and they all worked. And then post-COVID, some of them got to come home because of the, work from home type situation and disability and all that kind of stuff. Women who got the chance and got a taste of what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom, you know what they did? They surveyed them. Women with kids 18 and under, they did a whole study. This isn't a Christian conservative study. You guys could easily verify this. 56% of women who work full-time said that they would have preferred to stay home had they been given the opportunity to. 56% of women who work full-time would have preferred to stay home had they been given the opportunity to. Now, remember, what did we just say? Most men are going to want to have kids. The ideal situation for your kid is to be in the same home as you. And the majority of women, not Christian women, not conservative women, just women who work full-time, would have preferred to stay home had they been given the opportunity. And the average salary for a man in America is $36,000 a year. And the average rent in America is around $1,500 a year. Is anybody else doing the rough math with me? Is anybody else considering the implications of this? $1,500 a month. So $1,500 a month, that's what, $18,000 a year? The average. Now, if you got a car note and you got student loans, you guys see where I'm going? So the top 20% of earners make more than the bottom 80%, meaning this, the top 20% of earners all earn more than $100K and up. The top 20% of earners earn more than it means the bottom 80% of earners in America earn under $100,000 a year. You guys see where I'm going with this? So we can, as Christians, listen to me. You can act like money doesn't matter and that like God could just send you manna from the sky and you could act like that. But the reality is the scriptures are very clear about providing for your family and taking care of your family, and right? So where is this all going to go? So when I talk about these sorts of things, I'm not even talking about access. I don't drive a Tesla. I would love to have one someday. I don't live in $1 million home. I would love to someday. We're not even talking about access. We're talking about bare bones. We're talking about build a life where you can pay your rent, pay off your debt, allow your wife to stay home with the kids if she chooses so, to homeschool them so that you're not sending them away for the majority of their waking hours to be raised by someone else. We're talking about the bare bones. And that's not going to work on $36,000 a year in most places. This is what stewardship is about. This is what being faithful is about. I'm in Southern California, Asha. Have you looked at the real estate prices in San Diego? So that is the crux of this. Is there's two disjointed messages, and I'm not going to say that it's a conspiracy. I don't know. I think it's usually people that are incompetent. I think it's usually people that have gotten to achieve all of their dreams and their goals and their things, and now they want to project on what they want. And I think that the rest of society is like, I just want to get a little cushion. I just want to get a little cushion. So then the question becomes, if you want to have your wife stay at home, homeschool your kids, or send them to a private school, not have to live paycheck to paycheck, well, goodness gracious, you're going to have to be in like the top 20% of earners. And that's a hard reality that we don't want to talk, especially Christians. We hate talking about this stuff. Hey, this clip is from our daily after party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. The perks are amazing. You should get on there. It's only $5 a month. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.